Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy that you've joined us today. This is part one of a three-part series designed to provide insight into establishing a business architecture practice charter. As Beth stated, we do have various levels of business architects and different stages of practice development with us. So hopefully everyone is able to glean something from this webinar. Okay, thanks, Beth. So the topic is developing your business architecture value proposition for your charter, focusing on the business architect and the business architecture practice. So, I'm sorry, Beth, is this moving at its own pace?
No, I forgot that you had control of the remote and I had to do something on my screen. So you should be good to go now.
Okay. In my experience, our practice has had various ups and downs over the years for several reasons. Our current practice has been the most successful. And I think the key reasons for that success is one, and primarily our leadership support and advocacy for us becoming a true business architecture practice. In 2018, as a team of one, I took the time to reflect on the prior 10 years of our team's journey to try to understand why the practice hadn't been as successful, or it wasn't successful at all in some ways. Trying to get some perspective on what we would be doing differently. So the good thing was that from the inception around 2008, our organization recognized the need for the skill set. The bad thing was that business architecture wasn't a fully developed discipline yet, so we were reacting to a lot of different requests thrown our way based on our skill set and where we were positioned in the organization. The ugly thing was that we had several leadership changes, and if you attended the Guild Summit a couple of years ago, not this summit, but the one prior to that, I did a presentation on our practice evolution. So there were a lot of changes through the years, but this time we had a supportive leader, and we were all aligned that the business architecture practice could deliver value. So to establish the practice, I decided to develop a practice charter. And one of the large parts of that charter was the value proposition. Through the webinar series, you'll see that the other parts of the practice charters sometimes center around that value proposition. So that's why we're starting with how to develop, or ways to develop a value proposition statement for your charter. For your practice, sorry. So out of the webinar, we hope that you'll be able to understand what tools are useful from the business architect's toolbox in order to develop a charter, and be prepared to continue on to the second part of our three-part webinar, which is starting the development of that charter, in addition to adding the value proposition to it. So this is our content for the day, and we'll just go ahead and get started. So where do you start? So value proposition mapping, or value mapping, is a good place to start. It is a tool in the toolkit. And it was difficult for me at the start because to be honest, the first pass at our value proposition, we basically took the Guild's business architect value proposition from the BizBoc and tweaked it to become our first draft at the business architecture value proposition for our company. It really didn't ring true with our leadership, so we knew we would need to revise it, but we wanted to make sure that we were able to clearly articulate in that value proposition statement or statements the value that we bring to our customers. Ensure that our entire team, we did hire more team members, ensure our entire team is aligned on our practice goals, what we deliver, our products and services, and also for any new business architects coming on to the practice, it was a good way to start level setting with them what exactly a business architect does. We have 3 other people that have joined our team thus far, and none of them had a background in business architecture. So it was important for them also to understand what our team does, what products and services we provide, who our customers are, our primary customers, and then what value we bring to those customers. So the activity of value mapping is not hard in itself. For us, our team had played so many roles over time, and we had had so many different leadership changes that I had to kind of discern, what today is important and let go of what had happened in the past. So the other thing is every company is different. So one of the things to establish is who your customer is. Every company doesn't begin or use business architecture in the same way. So you may approach this differently than we did, but ultimately we all have customers. Right? So discerning exactly who your customers are, what their needs are, what they do, and what their pains are, what their issues are with getting their jobs done. So the customer profile map is a good tool to use to identify all those things about your customer. And that's another tool that is available to business architects, and Metropolitan's Business Architecture Certificate Program goes into much more detail about how to use that tool, when to use that tool, and how to use it in conjunction with the value map to make sure that your value that you've documented aligns to your customer's needs. So like I said, every company is different. There are many ways a practice could be established. There are many ways business architects are staffed. We are an enterprise level business architecture practice. We are centralized, we're not decentralized. So I know of practices where there are business architecture practices embedded in different business teams. And there are others that have a business architect role, not a formal practice, in different departments, and that they have specific job duties. I don't think that this exercise of developing a value proposition is limited to a formal practice or a centralized or decentralized or even the role. It's always good to know whether or not you're delivering value, and is the value what your customer needs. The one thing that's difficult though with a decentralized model is that who are your customers is a different response per business architecture practice within your organization. And one of the things that's, in my view anyway, that's difficult about a decentralized model is that your value proposition may be different from department to department, And if there's no centralized governance over those different business architecture practices within your organization, they may be operating under different rules and delivering value in a different way, and also delivering different value. So from an organizational perspective, I think a decision about whether or not you have an enterprise level versus department level versus just the role is an important thing to undertake before you begin looking at standing up a practice. We happen to be, as I said, centralized at the enterprise level. The person that we report to in our organization reports to our CIO. So we are in the IT area of the company and not in the business or strategy office. So all those things matter, and all those things are going to influence what the value is or value proposition is that you develop. So again, if you're familiar with the customer profile map or use it, we use this tool to understand each customer type. We have about 6 different customer types that we deliver value to today. We identified what each customer did, what their needs were, and what their complaints were. And we focused on those things that our practice could influence, improve upon, or support. So in the customer profile, if you're familiar with this, these components are referred to as jobs, pains, and gains. And again, the Metro Certificate Program goes into this in much greater detail. So we knew what our products and services were, but another part of the exercise is, do your customers know what your products and services were that you offered? This was one of the things that we found when I was looking at, what is exactly is our value proposition, and, developing our charter in 2018 for the restart of our practice. It was obvious to me that not all of our customers knew what our products and services were that we offered. So we had to make sure that we planned for socializing what it is that business architecture did for the company and the value that we brought. But in defining your products and services, the alignment to what your customers' needs are, what their complaints are, their jobs, gains and pains is important. Because if your products and services don't support the customer where it needs support, or alleviate some of those pains they have, then you're not really bringing value. You may be misaligned. So these tools can help to ensure that your value that you propose that you're delivering actually does align to your customers, and that your products and services actually facilitate that. So one of the examples where it may not be obvious when you're talking about tangible products and services, one of the examples that I wanted to give today was when we went through this exercise, one of our customer pains that we found was they were confused about roles. So they didn't understand our role, and I think I mentioned that. They didn't understand our role as opposed to the business relationship managers that were assigned to their various divisions. They didn't understand our role when it came to the project, the PMO, PMs, and BSAs. Specifically when our team was assigned to address large and complex projects. So even though they saw our value and appreciated it, it was overshadowed by the confusion And it revealed an area that we determined we needed to improve on. So this is an example of why knowing your customer is important, but that example, I used it because it brings me to my next point, and that is, can you measure how well you deliver your value? And that was what was lacking in addition to role clarity. It was what was lacking in our model. We determined that we needed to be able to survey our customers in some way to make sure that we knew what their experience was, and if there were any additional pains in dealing with our team. So it illuminated that our practice was missing a way to measure our customer satisfaction when we were not working within a project. We only knew about this role confusion pain because of the PMO's customer survey after the project was over. So we needed to add a survey or some way to measure customer satisfaction when what we did with our customer wasn't a part of a project. So hopefully that makes sense. And one of the tools that we use to more recently, once going through the business architecture certificate program, was use of the business model canvas. And I think this is a common tool within several business architecture practices in different companies, and different companies may use it for different reasons and in different departments. But the business model canvas was a useful tool to use to understand our practice, our operating model, and whether it fits our customer needs. So this is an example. This is our business model canvas, focusing on the key activities, which are our products and services. And then we have our value proposition. And then we have our customers, which that's our priority, our different customers. And there's 5 listed here. There's probably more like 6, but these are the ones that we have documented to date, and we've mapped to our value proposition. And then this is also how we determine, does our product and service fit our customer profile? So we're mapping our value proposition details, or the benefits and features of it, from the customer's pains and gains to what we do to deliver value. So these 2 screens are output from the tool that we use at our organization, which is Iris Business Architecture. It's a benchmark consulting tool. So I know this is a busy slide, but this is the output, and we are able to document our value proposition, our business model canvas in that tool. You don't need a tool to be able to do this. This was for illustration purposes only. You can certainly do this in Excel or on paper, but the point is that we were able to demonstrate to our leadership that what we do and what we deliver is of value to the business, and it does satisfy some of the business objectives and goals. So the parts of the value proposition statement that I wanted to highlight are that it identifies your products and services that are used in delivering value. It identifies the customers receiving that value, and the value being delivered, and what is that value that you're delivering to the customer, and how is it delivered to the customer. So I wanted to give examples of our internal three examples of value statements from our charter. So in just a little background, part of our role is to assess corporately funded initiatives, business ideas, or projects, especially when they're large and complex, and have cross-functional enterprise-wide impacts, both vertically and horizontal impacts. It's not a technical view by any means, but we do identify systems that are in play. We also identify operational impacts in our assessments. So our assessments are key products or work products that we deliver. It also helps, as I'll go through these three, but it also helps to, level set with a business team that has suggested a project or has requested, a new product or a new capability or something of that sort. It gives them a better understanding of what they're actually asking for and the work that it will take to deliver it. So what our first value proposition statement, our assessments help leadership reduce project costs by decreasing the number of change requests. So this was a big one for us, and it kind of was it was what actually solidified that our team does have value in the organization. One of the pain points from our leadership, from our CIO in prior years, was that the rate of CRs on projects was so high that it was costing our company millions of dollars, and there was no reason. They couldn't understand the reasons for it. So one of the things that our assessments has led to is a decrease by millions of dollars of change requests. So that's an example of, here is a pain from the leadership, right? So the customer is our leadership. The pain that they have is project costs above and beyond what was originally projected because of CRs. And our product that helped that was our assessment. So the customer is leader, the product or service is the assessments that we do. The value that we deliver is reducing project costs. And the how is, in this example, is the measure of our value, right? So by doing the assessments upfront, we decrease the occurrence of change requests. And then in number two, our assessments help project teams deliver quality projects by clearly defining scope and impacts for complex projects. So again, the customer is the project team. The product is, again, our assessment. The value is that we're able to deliver quality. And defining scope and impacts, we measure that in reduced time. The project team has a reduction in time in terms of project timeline for discovering things from the business directly. And it also is measured by a reduction in missed scope. So one of the pain points, again, was the project teams were delivering projects, but the quality, there was a lack of quality because of missed scopes or missed scope or misunderstanding of scope. So again, that was driving as CRs as well. So the complaints about over-engineered solutions or misunderstandings or of what the intent was by the business, or you delivered, yes, but it's not what I wanted. those types of complaints were what we were trying to address in the assessments as well. And then thirdly, we have what we call our discovery process. That's one of our services that we provide to our business stakeholders. So our service is the discovery process, and our customer is the business stakeholder. And our discovery process is it's what we use to develop the assessments. And our discovery process basically walks through with every impacted stakeholder, the business owners of the idea or the project, and we ensure that we understand thoroughly what the business wants in their initiative or their idea. And we want to make sure that they realize and account for all of the cross-functional and operational impacts. We want them to realize all of these impacts so that they can develop a sound business case, as well as account for all of the systems and the processes and the people that would be impacted by their idea or their project. And then as an example of that, we had a request and an idea from a business leader in the organization for something that was extremely impactful, major change to how we operated in a specific way. The thought from the leadership perspective, and of course, leaders are looking at things at a 20,000-foot view. They're not down in the details or into any of the, day-to-day operations. Their perspective was, why isn't it like flipping a switch? Why is there so much work associated with what we've asked? So the assessment, and not to say that this is typical of our organization and our assessments, but the assessment for this initiative, the document that we drafted, just to give them an idea of all of the different areas that were impacted, all of the systems, all of the work that had to be done, was about 100 pages. So it was a highly, highly impactful initiative that they were requesting. We wanted to make sure they understood the level of complexity and the amount of work it was going to take to achieve what their goal was, so that they weren't dissatisfied, at the end, because the timeline that they wanted this in and the amount of work had to be clearly articulated so that they understood the risks of what they were asking in the time frame they were asking. So hopefully that made sense. Different value proposition statements, they're not all constructed the way the previous screen stated. So those are ours for our business, for our practice, and for our industry, and for what we do within a company. And as I said in the beginning, there's different types of companies. We're not prescribing anything here, just giving examples of what our experience is. But just to give an alternate view of value proposition statements, Apple's value proposition statement is the experience is the product. So that's very concise. It communicates what it needs to about the value of their product. The Slack, if you're familiar with Slack, be more productive at work with less effort. So that's their value proposition statement. And again, these industries are more commercial and customer focused, external customer focused. So it's more like a marketing tool in my view. Their value statements are constructed to be a marketing tool. Uber, the smartest way to get around, is their value proposition statement. Digit is save money without thinking about it. That's a banking or financial app. And then Evernote is remember everything, 2 words. Unlike ours, which are full on sentences. But again, just to illustrate the differences between what a value proposition statement may look like to companies such as Apple and Uber and Evernote versus a healthcare insurance company, which is where I work. So again, not prescribing, just trying to work through and illustrate that the different parts of a value proposition statement. So the key points as we wrap up, know your customer, understand their needs, understand their pain points, and do your products and services deliver value to your customers in relationship to their needs. So we can deliver value, but if it's not in the area that is most important to that customer, then are we really delivering the appropriate value? Are we aligned to that customer's needs? One of the things that we struggled with early in our practice days was trying to boil the ocean. We tried to be everything to everybody who asked for anything. So developing a charter, focusing on where we can truly add value to the organization is what we had to narrow our focus to. And the other thing is, don't assume your value is understood. Always be prepared to tell your value story. That is something that we also determined we lacked. We lacked visibility within the organization. We didn't socialize what our practice was or what our value was. Internally, there's a, you should be an IWay story, meaning our internal intranet, we should be on the front page 1 week with an article about our practice and how our practice delivers value. But we assumed that since we were participating in different initiatives that everybody knew what our value was, but that just wasn't the case. And working through a charter, working through just the value proposition statement can help you to be able to tell your story. So thank you for coming. I'm going to turn this back over to Beth. I hope you got something out of part 1. Part 2, we'll pick up and cover the other parts of a practice charter. But we wanted to do this one about the value proposition. As I said, it's key to the charter development and the alignment of your products and services and customers to that value. So Beth, back to you.
Thank you, Maureen. And I'll check chat in just a minute for questions, and maybe Maureen, you're able to see the chat as well and can start taking a look at those. So I'm just going to quickly preview what's coming up. So our free expert insights for next month in May is Business Architecture at the Speed of Business, presented by Dean Heltemez. He's one of our Metro State business architecture instructors. And then in June, the webinar is on diversity, equity, and inclusion, how to apply it in your workplace as an individual. And then in July, we return to Maureen, as you can see here, with part 2 of this series. And in July, I'm really hoping that we're going to be able to announce the new programming at Metro State for business architecture. Between now and then, we're probably going to do a few more surveys, business architecture surveys, so that we can connect with our customers, make sure we're doing our value proposition and addressing your pains and giving you some gains. So keep an eye out for that. I can't see the chat yet, but one of the questions we frequently get is, can I have the slide deck? And we do not do that. But this session has been recorded and it will be posted on our expert insights section of our webpage. The webpage is there on the slide, you can see. You got to give us a week or two. We're a small department, and it'll be there, so you can watch it again. Or if you had colleagues that you want to join you for part two, you can send them to watch part one if they missed today, and then you can all watch part two together. Let me see here. I'm going to stop the share, and Maureen, one of the questions is, do you create multiple value propositions for a single customer segment?
Yes. If we are delivering different types of value to a customer, we do. So I'll give you an example. We have we have such a demand at this point for our services that we've set up a snow ticket, if a service now ticket, if you're familiar with that process, where we have all the different types of services that we provide, or products that we provide in a drop-down list, and our customers can select whichever one they need and send us a request for our services. So where the value we bring for each one of those services may be different for the same customer segment. So we may they may request us to evaluate a vendor that they are looking to bring into the company and do some service for our members. So we may do that at their request, so that they can select a vendor. They may have give us all the different vendor capabilities, let us talk to the vendor, and we give them advice there. Another example is regulatory. So the same customer may have there's a new federal mandate in healthcare for this year, next year, and the year after. So we evaluate those mandates and help the customer to understand what we need to do to become compliant. So that's just a couple of examples of how one single customer, we deliver value in different ways. So yes, we would have multiple value propositions.
Thank you. One question was to me about the survey. And so the survey information, this current survey, we were trying to gather kind of current state of where our customers are at, so that we can get a feel for that to develop future state, and how we can help with that. It's an anonymous survey, so other than you saw all the information that I garnered from it, for the most part. And as I said, we'll continue to do a few other surveys. I can post this one back out on our website if you didn't get a chance to take it and you want to contribute, you can. But for now, that's going to kind of be our tool to make sure that as we move forward with designing new courses, that we're designing, like Maureen says, we want to make sure that we're aligning our value of our courses with customer needs. Another question for you, Maureen. A couple of questions. So question one is, do you work with other domain architectures at Blue Cross Blue Shield to deliver value?
Yes. So we have a process architecture group. The way we describe our relationship with that process architecture group is that we lay down the rails and they have the train moving across the rails. So we support each other in understanding what the impacts are and what the customers need. And they work with the customers on operational processes and best practices. They document in a different tool the process architecture for different domains. And then
go ahead.
I was going to say the second part of your question, if I'm understanding it, do you support operational groups outside of IT? Yes, we primarily support operational groups outside of IT. So we're kind of the bridge between what the technical teams end up doing and the business and what they want, they need and want. So even though our assessments are used by IT to understand what the ask is, and they provide ROMs or, they'll break it up into different agile, I'm sorry, I've had a brain freeze on the sprints or whatever the pieces of work they're going to do and what the MVPs are and all of that. But before they do all of that, whether it's waterfall or agile, we do our assessment and make sure that the ask from the business is well understood and not, and the IT department doesn't over engineer or under engineer. But we do also identify impacts to our operational teams. So an example of that is that large initiative I was referring to has huge impacts on our customer service team. So our customer service team understands that by a certain date, the business will have them taking on more work, and they're able to plan in advance for staffing and resource allocation, as well as training and scripts that they need for our customer service area. So hopefully that answered your question.
All right. Oh, another one popped up here. Are you satisfied with the Iris BizArc architecture software? And what does the software not do for you and you wish it did?
So that's a really curious question for me, because we're about to move to the new version of Iris. I'm excited to move to version 3.0. We've been on the 2.x series, the client on our desktop series. And the 3.0 version is actually is online. It's in the cloud. Some of the functionality that we gain from moving to 3.0, at least from what I can see so far in the demo, is going to make it easier for our team to be able to, well, multiple people to be able to work on the reference models. That was the one thing that was a struggle for us. We had to, on the desktop model, we had to create multiple versions so that we didn't overlay each other. But Daniel Lambert at Benchmark Consulting would certainly be glad to give you a demo of 3.0 if you're interested.
All right. And from a training education perspective, and all due respect to Daniel, I've met him many times and like him, very knowledgeable. I will just add that what software doesn't do for you is put the right information in. So if you don't have the correct background, it doesn't matter what you put into your software program, it won't provide the right information at the other end. So
very true.
Just gonna put that pitch in. I'm gonna do last call here for questions. And while I just kind of wait a little bit, I want to take this opportunity. Maureen, thank you very much for providing the presentation today. I know, because I've been on the journey with you, how hard you've worked for those of you who maybe don't do education and training. You put in about 4 to 6 times as many hours of prep as you do for the actual delivery. And so I know Maureen has been working really hard. And 1 hours are especially hard because it takes a lot to focus your information to get it down to fit within an hour-long webinar. So thank you, Maureen, for doing that. I am not seeing any other questions. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and close it out. And I hope I see many familiar names on the list. So I hope I see many of you back for Dean's presentation in May. And of course, I hope all of you return to hear part 2, the project charter, as Maureen shows you how to move your value proposition to the charter. You've unmuted, Maureen. You want to add one more thing in here?
No, I was just going to say thank you for having me, and hopefully you all have gleaned something out of the presentation. But I hope to see you next time.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.